Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, where we take a deep dive look at all things reality TV, pop culture, and the world at large. I'm an intuitive and an empath, which means I pick up on the thoughts, feelings, and energy percolating in other people and the world around me. I believe there is meaning waiting to be found at every turn if you're willing to see it. So join me as we dismantle everything from trash TV to high spiritual concepts and learn more about ourselves, each other, and how we're all connected.
Yeah, I'm like getting very, sorry, that was a lot.
No, well, just FYI, I did press record, but keeps it. What were you going to say? Because I felt something too.
It went heart to stomach, and then I got like chills. Like I was about to cry, but I couldn't.
Yeah, so just for people at home, since we're diving in, and maybe even this little bit of a chaotic start is interesting given the topic. I'm here with old friend of the pod, Molly Durand. Hi, Molly. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And right before I pressed record, we're talking about Kyle Cooke today, the man of the hour, the unlikely man of the hour who knew this is where the season was going, public favor swinging wildly and emphatically towards Kyle. We're in a new era of being a Summer House viewer. But yeah, just before I hit record, Molly and I kind of both just took a moment to drop in, and I just, kind of simply and quietly said, okay, like essentially let's invoke the spirit, the energy of Kyle Cooke. Oh, wow. Even saying that. So I felt something too when I dropped. I just immediately felt, a wave of grief, sadness. I felt my heart. I too kind of felt that impulse to cry. And so then opening my eyes and then seeing you having a very similar reaction, I just thought it was interesting that we both immediately kind of connected to an inner grief. And like, as I say that, like sense of love, tenderness. And I think you and I, we've talked about this. We've always had a soft spot for Kyle. Not everyone has. That's why I'm saying we're in a new era of Summer House. But I think this is part of what we've both connected to in him. I think we've both felt that kind of earnest heart. And obviously, we'll get to wherever we're going to explore today. It's not that Kyle doesn't have his hand in the drama around him. Of course he does. I'm sure we'll get to that. But I do think there's a way in which Kyle, I think he feels misunderstood a lot of times. And I think he does deep down have very good intentions. So I think, we're connecting to that a little bit up top.
Oftentimes an earnest heart, does not necessarily translate into societal norms. An earnest heart doesn't know how to communicate always, right?
Well, especially when you're an earnest heart who also maybe has not learned how to or pulls back from slowing down when you're feeling a lot. An earnest heart that doesn't know how to regulate his or her strong feelings and powerful emotions that I think often have wisdom, but you don't know how to communicate the wisdom because you don't know how to slow down long enough to check in with what's going on in your what's the word I'm looking for? Flooded, like your flooded heart, and suddenly you're spazzing out. And you're like a bull in a china shop and you're every which way but loose. Wrong metaphor, but you get what I'm saying. And then your reaction, your behavior, your temper, that becomes the issue as opposed to the initial source of wisdom that wanted to come through. And suddenly we're not seeing the forest through the trees and something gets lost. I mean, it's kind of funny because in some ways we're going very slowly right now, but we're also getting ahead of ourselves, which kind of feels like, Kyle gets ahead of him. There's moments where Kyle needs to slow the fuck down and connect to something very deep inside of himself. And that's when he speeds the fuck up and then chaos ensues. So we'll get to all of this. But is there anything more you need to say just up top? Because we did just sort of dive into something.
No, I think that's great. You know, I obviously did a tarot spread, and some of the things that you're already saying are hitting exactly on what the reading gave me. So I'm excited to jump in.
Okay, great. All right, so let me take a moment because we did totally just dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. Yeah, really excited to be here. Really excited to explore Kyle on a deeper level. This is something I've actually I've wanted to do this for years because I have really been drawn to him over the years. And really excited to have a guest with me today because he's a lot. He's a big energy. There's a relationship to chaos. And I also think every time I try to drop into Kyle, there's something he circles that's the image I always get. He circles around stuff. I think he circles around the heart of the issue. I think it's very hard for him to make a direct connection to his own heart. And so I need help with Kyle. So I'm so excited to have you back today, Molly, and to have a guest. It's been a minute. And yeah, I guess just to frame this up top, what compelled me to want to dig into Kyle today. We're recording this on Tuesday, so tonight's the season finale. It's also the premiere of In the City. So we're recording this before having seen those episodes. The last episode was the penultimate episode of the season where we saw Kyle throw his tantrum and then he got into a big fight with Carl. And yeah, like I already said, it's been really interesting to see public response to Kyle this season. He was headed for the worst season ever. And people were already riding him hard for his behavior at the beginning of the season, which I do want to revisit some of that. It's funny because as a longtime Kyle fan, I almost feel like people are going a little too easy on him now. It's like the pendulum swinging so far in the other direction where it's like now Amanda is just this Machiavellian abuser and Kyle is just a misunderstood poor soul who just is, now people are saying all of his behavior has been reactive abuse. And I'm like, okay, this is going a little too, well, maybe not even a little, this is going too far. But it has been interesting because as I expressed on Instagram and you and I have talked about, I am seeing people start to clock, I think, what you and I have clocked for a while, especially at that final dinner, where there is a way that the house, I think, tends to use Kyle when it's convenient and to poke at him in a way that, to me, and maybe we can get into some of the nuances here, to me, it's always felt, I understand, look, it's their job to bring up uncomfortable topics. It's their job to confront things. It's their job to ask uncomfortable questions, oftentimes in a group setting. But I will say it's always landed a little bit different with me when it comes to Kyle. There's the word that comes up, like a meanness that I feel sometimes, someone on Instagram used this word. I loved it. Glee. There's like a pleasure they seem to take at poking at it. Even as I'm saying this, I'm getting chills because it feels so true in my body. It lands a little bit different. Now, I will say, I watched the scene, obviously, the first time, and then it hit me in a certain way. I rewatched it today, and it actually landed with me a bit different. So I'll sort of talk about that up top by way of an introduction. But I also went back and rewatched certain scenes. So like when Kyle got really upset at the top of the season, when Amanda jumped into the pool with her bra, then when he tried to apologize for it at a group dinner. And then I went back and rewatched when Hannah and Paige were giving him the business at a dinner way back in season 4, which is where he first termed them Giggly Squad, which to me, revisiting that scene, oh my God. First of all, I felt my anger all over again, but there is a pattern here of how this house organizes around Kyle. So, obviously at that final dinner, and I guess I wanted to speak to this because, like I said, I see the viewing public now registering something about the way that they felt the group was poking at Kyle at this final dinner. And as you know, this is something I have clocked for years. So I wanted to revisit that specifically. And I guess what I'll just say up top before I go back into the past, and then I'll check in with you to get your reaction is, so Lindsay starts bringing up these questions about Kyle signing with a DJ manager and essentially whether or not he's really sort of checked out this big career move, because I guess signing with this manager represents, one, him committing to the DJ career more seriously. Two, there's talk of a possible residency, in Vegas, which I assume means would bring him out to Vegas. And so, Lindsay's asking questions about that and checking in as to whether he's like sat down with Amanda and had a real conversation, and I think the key words here are as his partner, as his life partner, and really taking in what she has to say about it in a serious way, which I want to say actually is a legitimate question. And I do think this is where Kyle falters. Maybe we'll get more into this. I think he makes a lot of decisions on his own and then gets upset about it when people have feelings about it. The first time I watched it, there's this moment where Lindsay is asking him, have you had a serious talk with Amanda about this possibility? And his response was, well, I haven't signed yet. So when I first heard this, I was like, okay, so, essentially he's saying he hasn't officially decided. There's still time and he plans to talk to her. Basically kind of saying, I don't know if he says this or even implies it, like, I will be having a serious conversation with her. And Lindsay then responds, oh, is this the conversation? And so when Lindsay responds, oh, is this the conversation? The first time I watched this, I was like, oh, I don't like that. That's kind of manipulative. It's kind of provocative. He's saying he hasn't signed yet, and you're not listening to him. You're not taking in what he's saying, which is, I have not signed yet. There's still time to have this conversation. I will talk to her. And that's kind of when I felt the first time I watched it, sort of this devouring energy swirling around him, where kind of like, I think this is the thing. No matter what he says, they're going to find fault with it. No matter what he says, they're going to pick it apart. Now, I will say the second time I watched it, it did hit me a bit differently, where I was like, oh, actually, I do think Lindsay might be clocking something here. When he says, well, I haven't signed yet, I was like, I think this actually might be Kyle basically sort of saying, you know what, I wasn't really planning on having that serious conversation where I truly take her in as a wife and partner. And now you're clocking something. And so I'm saying, well, I haven't signed yet. And yes, I plan to. And I think Lindsay may have been clocking that, right? Mm-hmm. But I think regardless, I think the reason why I had that initial reaction is because there has been this pattern of the way that they use Kyle. And again, we'll get into past examples, but where nothing he does or says is right, they kind of attack him. Energetically, they attack him. Yeah. And I want to say, like, even Jesse, like, Amanda starts to bring this up. There's been a lot of commentary about Amanda's, giddy smile. She's immediately smiling as soon as Lindsay brings it up and is sort of going in for the kill. And I want to say, like, as I'm saying this, even though I do think Lindsay's asking legitimate questions, I also want to say, like, I think I am clocking something that Lindsay wasn't really, I don't think she was asking questions out of genuine curiosity and trying to hear Kyle's perspective. I think she was trying to make a point she was making the point, but also not explicitly making the point, and then it's like tense. And then Jesse kind of pipes in with like this big grin on his face. Yeah, Kyle, I'm just sort of curious. Like, so you are signing with this new DJ manager, and what does that mean? And he frames it as this innocent question, but you can feel it. There's an energy building. And like I said, there's a pleasure people are taking and sort of putting Kyle on the spot. And it's like, the more he reacts, it's not like everyone takes their cue from that and backs off. The more he reacts, the more they go in for the kill. Mm-hmm. So there's an energy here. And like I said, this might not be the best example because I do think that they were clocking very real things, but this is where we can go back into the past and break some past examples down of what might be going on. But I feel like I've already said a lot up top just in laying this groundwork. So let me check in with you and where you're at.
Yeah. Okay. So I love everything you said and I agree with it. And yeah, Lindsay knew what she was doing, but I actually kind of want to speak about Lindsay and Kyle as part of this ecosystem because I feel like they're both that Leo solar energy. And, when you think about the matriarch and the patriarch, I think of Kyle and Lindsay, both this powerhouse Leo solar sort of energetic lightning rod of the house. And so her bringing this up, leading to his eruption, to me felt somewhat symbolic of the topic that you're bringing in, which to me, and I've been writing a lot of notes since you wrote, I think it's how the house has never fully integrated Kyle emotionally is because of a lot of times they feel that he doesn't fully see them. And one of the main confusing parts for me between him and Amanda is that I don't feel that we as an audience have a accurate assessment of what kind of conversations they actually ever have or if they ever have them. Does that make sense? Like, it is so unclear to me if they're ever having real conversations because she claims that they're not. And you do see him shut down with her because he doesn't see a way through. And she doesn't see a way through with him, so she shuts down as well. And so then they project it on the world stage of the house because the house is essentially the world stage for their relationship. They met in this house. They are a part of the house. They are the married couple who gets the mass, like the largest bedroom in the house. They're the ones who get to live in the big bedroom with the big bed. Their relationship is oftentimes they are the ones who bring in the friends, right? But Lindsay and Kyle have had a very similar, I think they're like the rods in this ecosystem. And I think, I'm not going to get into what the cards quite say fully yet, but, the story opened with the Empress, which is what you're talking about, slowing down and regulating. And also the Empress is talking about that creative energy of allowing. And also the conversation about the feminine energy, which can be expressed in both male and female, obviously. And we see the feminine energy sort of have a real, we've done a podcast about this show in the past, and the feminine energies issues were a huge part of that podcast because, like you said, there was this mirror of this learned behavior that are like a replica with the Giggle Squad. And then you see it at the top of the season with Sierra right out of the gate, getting in the car, taking the seat, driving with Amanda because Amanda doesn't want to drive with Kyle, them laughing at him episode 2 at the table. Like there's a real strong desire from the feminine to want to ridicule and humiliate this particular person. Yes. And there is a strong male response to want to shake Kyle into his senses, but also none of the men feel strong enough to directly, I think, talk to him because I don't feel that they feel comfortable. And so the problem that I have with Kyle is that he's created guardrails around himself that make it very hard for people to get in. We as the audience, it's like when I'm performing, I have a clean channel between me and the audience, right? They're seeing the real me. So the people in my life and all that, but when I'm performing, it's me and the audience, and all they're seeing is the light that God gave me. And I do feel like in a lot of ways, we're seeing the goodness of Kyle, but we're not interpersonally relating with this man. And he is not taking people in on an emotional level. And then he's wondering why the house doesn't integrate him. And the battle of the sexes has always been a huge theme in Summer House. I mean, it's the theme.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. And it's so funny because, I do love Kyle. I have such a soft spot for him. But whereas everyone else, not everyone else, but so many others are just discovering their appreciation of Kyle this season, this has actually been my most difficult season with Kyle. Because to your point, well, first of all, I think he's very camera savvy. That I never quite got that about him before the season. But again, at the beginning of the season, before all this stuff with Scamanda went down, when Amanda would actually stay calm and just deliver things to him very directly, like, for example, I just remember her he was kind of pouting basically that she's not giving him attention. She's not spending time with him. And she just said to him very clearly and calmly, Kyle, you've been gone DJing, like I've been left alone. And essentially like now you're here, you're ready to spend time with me at Summer House on camera, essentially. And guess what? Like, I'm not available for your schedule right now. I mean, I'm putting words in her mouth, but I heard her and I was like, oh, I get it. You know, and she made a few comments about, you're saying this now on camera. And, you know, he did, I mean, at least the way it's edited, he didn't put up an argument about that. And I was like, oh, Kyle knows how to make things look and sound good on camera, right? So I think he's camera savvy. And yes, you're right. I've said that before. I think one of the beautiful things about these reality shows, like, for example, I can quote unquote love someone like Vicky Gunvalson, even though she's problematic, because it gives me an opportunity to love the narcissistic personality from afar. So if I have a complicated relationship with the narcissistic personality, reality shows give me this great opportunity to have energetic distance, to like love them for what's great about them and to accept them and their limitations because it doesn't affect me. But to your point, yeah, I've noticed that this season, it's like it is almost impossible for Kyle to take people in, especially when he's activated. And it's funny because even this past episode, once he calmed down from the fight with Carl, I was getting so frustrated with how he was navigating that, because it's like,
Yes.
and I got a little frustrated with Carl too. They both kind of copped out a little bit, but
Totally.
you know, they tapped into something real. And what happens with Kyle, and this is, I want to speak to your point. It's like, I think there's so many instances, but like in the instance of what happened, regardless of whether he was poked, prodded, or pushed, he had a huge reaction. And he is responsible for his reaction. And he does have violent reactions. And that is going to impact people. It's going to scare people, which, you know, I'm saying from my perspective, it's fine. I can tolerate that in anyone, but not everyone can. And what I see Kyle do is he has these enraged, rageful, energetically violent reactions. And then it's just like, he kind of just wants to like put it to bed. And the way it's like, Carl, I'm sorry, let's hug. And he technically apologizes, which that's part of what I used to appreciate about him. I was like, oh, he's so forthcoming with an apology. But what I've really realized over the years, and especially this year, is he kind of uses, kind of like, I mean, it's totally different, but like Ramona the Apologizer, he kind of uses apologies as a way to just like, okay, I said I'm sorry, let's put this to bed. But I'm not going to actually deal with the intensity of my rage or the impact it's had on you. Just like I'm not going to really deal with the fact that, yes, I did make this decision to become a DJ well into our marriage. I am staying out late at night. Yes, I made a decision to take out a $4 million loan without consulting you. Like, I am out there making these big decisions. I am not taking the impact it has on you. And then when you try to bring it to me, I fucking shut down and play victim. I noticed this season more than ever, he won't look people in the eyes. He literally, like, it's like blinders come on, and he won't take people in. So what I saw with Carl was like, he immediately issues this apology, but he becomes, and I think this is important, and I have thoughts about this that I'll get to later about like historical pattern. He becomes like this little boy. Like his energetic posture. He's no longer the man. He's not the father. He's like a little boy. He's like, Mom, I'm sorry. I said, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm saying I'm sorry. And also, like, I'm so sad. And I hate saying this because I love a sensitive, emotional man. And again, in the past, I've loved the fact that Kyle is not afraid to cry. But lately I'm like, oh, he defaults to tears to kind of get out of stuff. It's like, Amanda, I'm sad. Don't you see? It's like in his mind, because I'm crying, and because I'm saying I'm sorry, you just have to like hear this, see this, take this in, and move on. And he doesn't take people in. He doesn't take his impact in. And when you try to get him to see it, he shuts down and becomes this little boy. And I do think, even though I love that we're kind of almost starting off with his responsibility in all this, I do want to get to the way they poke and prod. But this is me speaking to your point that I think there is this sort of gleeful poking, prodding, passive aggressive rage that comes towards him. And I don't think it's okay. And it makes me angry on his behalf. And when I was kind of feeling into like, where is this coming from inside the house? You know, I do think it could very well be connected to Kyle. You don't fucking listen. When we try to bring stuff to you, you shut it down. take responsibility for yourself. And it's almost like, not to excuse their actions, they're almost meeting him on the level of the child. If you're going to be this little boy when it's convenient for you, well, guess what? We're going to be the bullies in the schoolyard who fucking bully you. Oh my God, I just felt so good when I said that. Like, I could feel the pleasure of like, we're going to fucking poke you, Kyle. Yeah. How do you fucking like it?
Yeah. And because he is literally occupies a real structure within the ecosystem as Kyle, you know, in my reading, we have crossing the Empress is the magician, right? Like there is a structure within him being the daddy, if you will. And I keep bringing it back to that for me, because that's how I sort of see how it goes, where there's certain moments where he feels like he shouldn't have to speak for himself. And then other moments when, like to your point, where he sees, oh, it's not working for me to be dominant, so let me try another tactic. Like when he comes in the room to apologize, but then gets frustrated and leaves. You know, it again just sort of brings me back to this. And I have to bring Amanda into this because I think they both are mirrors of each other and play the same game. I think they've learned the behavior from each other. I think they've learned the behavior from the house. I think that like the Giggly Squad and all the other stuff was like a manifestation of Amanda's, like, that was like her masterpiece, you know? I mean, because if you think about it, like it was Kyle and Lindsay, they're like the OGs. And then when Paige came in and Amanda came in, it was this other thread of like, the world was starting to change also. Like a dominant daddy was no longer cool, right? And then all of a sudden, Kyle's like now older, but he's dating younger. And so he's not having to emotionally really develop that much. But then if you ask me, the interaction between him and Carl, they had terrible communication. Nobody said the truth and nothing got resolved, but their hearts connected on that hug. I literally felt the hug. And I do think a lot of sometimes male healing is not necessarily always communication based. And I shouldn't just say male, like male and female. There's a lot of healing that can occur when people are still unable to communicate. But there's just, I feel that he went from this territorial figure who still holds weight. I mean, like you were talking about in another podcast about this house, you brought in the court system of like a queen's court or a royal, you know, sort of figurines on a chessboard. And that is exactly like when I think a lot of what goes on with Kyle is the narrative that happens because of his behavior, because he absolutely is erratic and he responds visibly, he responds emotionally. And when he does that, those eruptions that I do think people poke at, because they never feel he'll address anything real. I feel like what that does is sort of, I do feel like there's a progression, like a crescendo to get him to do that. And then when he does that, everybody can sort of settle back in. And I think that we've seen it season after season. There hasn't been one season without him doing it. And then you take it back to the family dynamic. If it's true that Kyle is the daddy, which I very much think he is, even Carl, who's like 8 feet tall, like cowers to Kyle. Like Kyle said, when he went upstairs to say, like, sorry, he goes, come in here, get in here. And the way he said, he was like, get in here. And Carl's like, okay. Like people want to make Kyle happy. And or not happy, but people want to connect with Kyle. They desperately want to connect with Kyle. I think Amanda desperately wanted to connect with Kyle, but Amanda can't connect with herself, right? Like Amanda's attachment to finding somebody who's problematic so that she can then scold them like a mean mommy is a pattern that she will decide to look at or not. We're not talking about that today, but I will say it plays another role into why did Kyle call in a mommy, a mean mommy who can't give him love? And the Empress is the first card that comes in my tarot spread about Kyle and the relationship to the house.
Well, I've conjectured before that I've gotten hits about Kyle and Mom, and I don't know if this is the place to start getting into like possible historical pattern or not. But one thing I do want to say, one thing I just did want to elaborate on before we go past it. It's like, coming back to the Carl of it all, it's like you could really feel like when Kyle started, going into himself, talking about his crying his apology, talking about how hard it's been. Like you could feel like Carl has something to say to Kyle. Carl has something to say, which is again, like snap out of it, man. Take responsibility for yourself. Like you said, he wants to shake him and snap him out of it. But you could feel Carl bumping up against that edge of if I attempt to bring this truth to Kyle now, he's going to freak out again. So this is the trap with Kyle. So Carl kind of knew in that moment, I just have to listen and I have to go along with it. And I have to sort of be compassionate. I'm going to have to meet him where he's at. Which, sometimes there can be something beautiful about that. And I don't know that was the moment to get through to Kyle. But I just feel like we saw that pattern in action. And to your point, I mean, I think for them at that point, repair was the priority, and I think they did that. But I also think to your point, yeah, because the truth is Kyle, he is a natural born leader. And Amanda, did she say this on the show? Or did I hear this somewhere else? But, she was like, look, Kyle, he's like the bright light in the room. And I believe that, and he is the daddy, in a real way. He's got I love it. I'm getting excited just talking about it. He's got because he's a loving father. And we see that's when Kyle's at his best. I mean, people talk about all the time, but a few years ago when Maya brought issues of what it was like to be a woman of color in Summer House, and Luke came in with his white fragility and tried to oppose her and make it about him. The graceful, strong, clear, loving way that Kyle stepped in and was basically no, Luke, in the most loving way possible. And he shut that down. And he did that for Maya, and he did that for Luke, and he did that for the good of the house. That to me is Kyle at his best. He is we talk about the patriarchy. To me, he can be a shining example of true, healthy, masculine, paternal love. Firmness coupled with love, deep, deep love. And he cares about the group. And I feel like a lot of times when he rages, it's because he's actually picking up on something that's off in the group dynamic and he doesn't know how to express it or to say it.
Yeah. Okay. So it hit me when you were talking that Carl had something to say. We heard him say it all season. He has never said it to Kyle. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh my God, that's why they poke him in a group setting. And we sort of already said it, but it just hit me. They all have to crescendo and poke him together to get him to feel something that they can then feel like he's hearing them. And what happens instead, and like I said, the family dynamic, dad lost it again. Like Chevy Chase, right? When you look back in those holiday movies where Chevy Chase loses it with the lights, that's how I feel about Kyle. And it's become part of the norm that Kyle's going to blow. He's not going to listen to us, but he's going to blow. But they have always, including Amanda, brought it to him on a group level. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll have side conversations, but it doesn't get anywhere. Yeah. And then when he looked at Amanda, because she was smiling at that dinner table. And she was just like you said, a defiant teenager against dad. And that's why their dynamic never worked. They were never equals to each other, really. And they were playing roles within roles within roles. She's mean mommy, and she's also the rebellious teen. He's the rebellious teen and also the daddy. They were both so unintegrated on who they wanted to be in that relationship, But so he literally looks at her and he says, fuck you, Amanda. And everybody flips out. We see her new boyfriend, Wes, come to be her protector, which was hysterical. And he is so, by a side note, Wes is so uncomfortable whenever Sierra is talking about him nicely. And it is so obvious to see, but that's a side note. So I'll stay away from it. But he says, fuck you, Amanda. And he says it because he can see through what's happening right now in the group. And he's like, you did it again. You made me your pawn. I'm the fucking villain. And then later on, he says, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. And all of them kind of bullshit and go, you're not the bad guy. We're not. But he is. He's the one that has the problem that they have to, and they all resent having to walk around on eggshells for it. It's complicated, I agree he is the solar power of the house, but with that lightning rod, like I said, him and Lindsay are so similar in this Leo solar energy where harnessing and being able to maintain and control that energy he's trying to do. In my reading, his relationship to this house is very much also he's conscious of it from a financial standpoint. He's conscious of it from a pragmatic, stable financial aspect. So I do think that Kyle looks at the house, okay, from a financial almost like his business degree is starting to come in. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's not connecting with them on an emotional level. And that's why when you start this reading with the Empress crossed by the Magician, it's like they can't manifest the emotional connection they're seeking from Kyle. Kyle can't manage the emotional connection. I don't know if he is seeking emotional connection because I think he's afraid to. And I think the business is what he focuses on because his heart is, I feel his, unconscious. I feel he has so much creative power and doesn't know how to focus it. And I feel like he has nothing but love and loyalty to give, but he's afraid to fully allow somebody in.
Yeah, there's a couple things coming up for me as I listen to you. One, I'm so drawn to this notion of Kyle's relationship to and role within the group, especially as it relates to energies, emotions, and feelings, because I talked about this actually on way back when in the COVID season on Sexy Unique podcast. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, when Kyle, and yes, he was drunk, but he just suddenly, something built up inside of him and he snapped at Luke and called Luke out for the weird sort of machinations and games he was playing with the women of the house. And it came through Kyle. So, because something had been building and building and building in the house towards Luke, Kyle erupts. And yeah, like there was definite rupture, right? But then it was like, then there was repair. They came back together. And it was so interesting just from like a symbolism standpoint. After they repaired, that was the first night they actually left the house and they all went out to dinner somewhere. And I remember feeling like, oh, something cleared. And it's like they're getting out of the house. And I remember talking about this at the time, like Kyle is someone who I do believe is deeply sensitive to energy. And again, I want to revisit this because often, much like that scene with Luke, when he's freaking out, it's because he's sensing something is going on that's not being named and he's trying to name it. And people truly, this word gets misused, but actually this is the correct use of the word, gaslighting him. That, I mean, we'll hopefully get there. That Giggly Squad scene, Paige literally calls him crazy and psychotic. She literally calls him psychotic for pointing out what he's pointing out. But to my point, Kyle, I think, is very sensitive to energy. And I think things then move through him. He's like an energetic channel and he expresses stuff and it kind of clears things. So I think part of the poking, as we're talking about this, yes, it's like what we're talking about. Like, you can't get through to him. You can't get through to him. I want to get through to him. This also reminds me, too, of another thing that came through me in season 5 when there was that whole conflict with Hannah. I remember dropping into Hannah, and what I felt from Hannah towards Kyle was, oh, I do feel him as the dad of the house. And I'm both so attracted to that energy and I'm so resentful of that energy. It's like a push-pull. I hate myself for being drawn to it. I don't want to be drawn to it. So I'm just speaking this in terms of pattern. It's the push pull. So I can imagine the house is drawn to Kyle and his energy and what he has to bring. But then he, like you're saying, and I'm saying, he's got that solar heart-based energy that's so fucking bright. And when it's on, it's fucking on. But then there are these ways and places that he'll shut you out. So yes, I think part of the poking is the passive aggressive, like we're going to like get you now and we're going to force you to engage. But I also think there is something here about that energetic role, as Candy was a lot like this on Atlanta. I'm like this. Like when I'm in rooms, like back when I was in my training for group facilitation, and I would either be a lot of times when I was
yes. I've actually been in a room where, yes, you are this. You're like
you've experienced.
Absolutely.
I had an outburst.
Well, no, it wasn't an outburst. It was your presence and your energy disrupted the norm in order for people to have breakthroughs.
Okay, I love that. And there have been times like when I've been an assistant, like up at Esalen in workshops when I was working with Anne, where there were times, and actually even when I was a participant in groups, I would start to feel what wasn't being said in the room and the energy would move through me and I would let it move through me very big and loudly. And it would clear something. And by the way, that's essentially a lot of what I do with my clients. I don't scream and yell, but like I'm bringing through what I'm feeling underneath the surface. So something about that, whatever, that's part of my medicine. I clear things out by naming it. I transmit. I think Kyle's the same way. And so part of what I'm hearing and what you're saying is there might also be an unconscious kind of like, let's poke Kyle and use Kyle to like clear some energy and get the medicine, even though it's unconscious in him and it's also unconscious in us. And the other point that I want to make that I feel somehow might be connected to this, because we're talking about that. Oh, you brought in money. And we're talking about also Kyle being picked on and sort of like this bullying aspect. A listener sent me this DM. I wish I could remember who it was so I could shout them out. I haven't listened to Carl's recent podcast interview with Kyle. I probably should, but apparently on that podcast interview, he recounted the story about how when he was 14 years old or something like that, he told his friends where he hid his savings, his money in his home. And his friends, oh God, the sadness is here. They broke into his house and they stole his money. And I was like, this is fascinating because one,
wow.
Pattern. It's like Kyle being picked on. And there was also something to me about the money. Like the money, because obviously money is such a focus for him. And you just brought that in, like entrepreneurship, 4 million in debt, money. And I feel this connection between his heart and his money. Not in and I feel like I might say that and people might think that's a negative thing, almost like there's this expression of love that wants to move through him. And there's also this desire to earn abundantly. And I think be generous. Like he's got this big loving heart and this big abundance and this relationship to money. And so when I heard this story about these kids, Lord of the Flies, circling around him, like he confided in them and they took advantage of that and stole his money.
That's wild.
I was like, that hit me really hard when I read that. And that just feels here somehow.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm taking that in some sort of like when somebody would do that to you as a child, that really kind of shapes your worldview on a lot of things. And I was also talking about it from the structural point of view of like, if Kyle views running this house like a business, that is sometimes, I think, sort of problematic when you're in relation to people, right? He often says in his testimonials, like, we're actually friends. But his friendships are a business. And I do think he is conscious of that. And I think, I like some of his posting recently since this whole scandal, like you talk about their glee when he sort of was poked at. He's having a little glee now on Insta. He's doing so many videos. He's popping off. He's lover boy. And I'm here
Can I say
for
the
it,
quickest?
right?
Can I say the quickest thing? Just because I saw the other night where he posed with Amanda at the premiere of In the City, and he posed with her, which caused like a brouhaha. Which on one level, yes, great, mature. This is why I also say I think he's very camera savvy. But when I saw him doing that, I heard the words, "I win." That's
interesting. Actually, that's interesting because I do think that they are at battle with each other. I actually think that him and Amanda have been at battle with each other for years. And I think that's obvious, like War of the Roses. It's more like The Lion in Winter. You know that play? Lion in Winter, there was this like deep love between the two characters, but the winning was more important to them and their pride and ego is more important to them. So the love sort of got lost and then they became addicted to the fight and winning. And that's sort of what I see with them and this behavior that's happening now as we see it. And, with the cheating allegations too, I'm kind of curious about, she got all these DMs with his behavior at these clubs. I wonder, I don't mean to bring this into the conversation, but it certainly is important to talk about like the fracture of this system that's created by this guy who I do think Kyle very much sees. I feel like he sees the house like he sees a business chart with the, how they draw, like whenever in the corporate structure, they have these sort of like pitch decks, like the hierarchy, the charts. Right. And I feel like that's how his brain works. Because I feel like that is similar to what you said. Like that's his like money that he's saving. Like that's if he can like manage this business and make it work for him, then he's safe in the world. And I don't think he's going to open up his heart until he feels safe in the world. And I don't know if there's enough money for him to feel safe. That's my concern for him. Because I think he's addicted to work.
100%. That's an episode. As I think I told you, I've always wanted to do that episode of really dropping into his relationship to workaholism. And also the boundarylessness of bringing in his wife, bringing in his best friend, like the work life murkiness. Wait, am I cutting you off?
No, I think the cheating stuff is something I'm curious to dive into in regards to this whole scenario, because I'm not sure where it fits in or how much. Like, it just feels like with him and Amanda, there's so much unspoken. And then they're at battle with each other. So it's almost like I don't trust either one's take on the other. But then when it comes to what she did to him and him standing by her, to me, that tracks. Because I think he does see this as a business model. And I think he has a loyal heart. And I think he will probably love her forever.
No, yeah, I want to be clear. And I know you get this, but yeah, multiple things being true at once. I think like that's the thing. It's like, like all of us, Kyle's complicated. So I think part of him, I mean, it's so weird. I think in some ways he's so emotionally immature, like in the ways that we're talking about of shutting people out and his emotional dysregulation. I think at his best, he is so emotionally mature, like in the sense that I totally believe, one, he loves Amanda, and he's someone who's able to be in conflict with people and still hold space for their humanity and want to stay in relationship with them. And so I think there's a part of him that's concerned for her. I think there's a part of him that wants to handle this gracefully. And I think there's a part of him that knows this looks great. And I think there's a part of him that knows he's fucking coming out on top. And to your point, like, I think there's a part of him that knows this is good for business. Friend of the pod, Just Rothschild, just texted me today, caught one of Kyle's like tweets or threads where he was like, he literally said, having my best week of TV ever this week, like something about like crying. I don't know if he said tears of gratitude. It's like, finale of Summer House, premiere of In the City, watch What Happens Live. And part of me was like, I mean, like, look, again, I love Kyle, but I was like, this is an interesting take, given everything that you're going through and given that the notoriety Summer House has right now is literally your heartbreak and the dissolution of your marriage. I was like, it's just kind of a little bit interesting that you're promoting this as like your best week in TV ever. Not sure that's how I'd be looking at this, but it confirms your point, which is, for him and Lindsay, by the way, this is a business. And I think that they've, look, this is part of what I always loved about Kyle and Lindsay from the beginning. And part of what I loved about Summer House in the beginning was these were two fucking entrepreneurs and they were hustlers. This was not today's generation of influencers. They were out there hustling. So yes, Summer House is part of that New York hustle, which was what made the show great in the early years and what I always loved about them. And even talking about it now, I still kind of love it. I love that they're just sort of like true blue New Yorkers who were like business comes first in a way that's a little different to me than like, the new generation of like social, like the
bed gear, literally being like, in bed.
Like the bed bugs and like Ben and Bailey and whatever Levy her name is. You know what I mean?
One quick thing, what you just said brought up so much to me. Like he hasn't taken any of this in. Like just like he doesn't take in everybody else on an emotional level, and that's why that house can't fully integrate him. I don't think he's taken what's happened in. I don't think he has processed at all that his wife of 10 years or however long they were together is with, which a lot of people, we aren't talking that much about the fact that like he brought West in, right? Wasn't West his friend or they were friends? But his friend West is now with his ex-wife. I don't think he's brought that fully in. I think he's focused on business. And I think this is the pattern in his life that got him here. And I think he's thriving because what he wants more than anything is to feel secure financially and business wise. And I think also dominance wise, like he wants to feel, here's the other thing, narrative and identity. He feels his identity has been thwarted by the narrative that started with the Giggle Squad back in the day. And his narrative and who he was got thwarted probably when he started to date Amanda. But even before then, he was considered a very specific type of guy. And so like his narrative has gotten away from him. And I think he's on like a desperate sort of I think he's on a desperate track to reclaim the narrative of who he is, and he's going about it through materialistic ways that I don't think he's going to get what he's really looking for, which is like internal integrity. Like, because we have the magician crossing the empress, it's sort of like telling me right now too that like his challenge is not accessing the solar power within himself and understanding that he has intuition. He has deep intuition. He has deep, like, he has a gut knowing. Not everybody does. I think he has a gut knowing of what's right and what's wrong. But his strive is to like reclaim his identity and narrative. And he's shutting people off on this path. He's shutting the floodgates. Like you mentioned flood earlier. Like he has this well. And that's why when we first tapped into him, it's like you feel like you want to cry, but you can't. And I just feel like he has not taken in what's happened. And I'm like this. Like, I remember when I got out of a very abusive situation, it took me like a year to realize what happened. And I feel like he's just going to ride the high for as long as he can. And there's going to be a huge crash.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And it makes total sense because just like you said, he shuts things out. So he can ride the high of the attention, the ratings, like the business propulsion, the attention. And like you're saying, it's probably a really great way to buffer the heartbreak.
Yeah.
It reminds me, again, for those who follow me on Instagram, I did a reel last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember when, but whenever it was that reunion where Sierra was talking about how she doesn't sleep with just anyone. And like when she was talking about her heartbreak over what went down with the West. And a lot of people noted about how like Kyle was crying in response, and when I dropped into it, it was this feeling of like, for me, of like Sierra is mirroring a sensitivity in Kyle that he does not let himself know. And it's why it's hitting him so hard. And I think, this maybe starts to threaten the cheating. What I really got was Kyle is someone who maybe specifically shuts down around sex and sexuality and intimacy. Because we've heard Amanda talk about he gets drunk and gets on top of me for a couple minutes, like he's not connected. And I think you and I texted about this. I don't know if I've talked about this publicly, but one of the places where I noticed Kyle not taking someone in was that moment that's now being talked about a lot, where Kyle and Amanda made out in that like spin the bottle game. And, on some level it was sweet because Kyle was like, oh my God, like it's so amazing to like connect with her in this way and to get to make out with her. But what I noticed was like, he didn't take her in. It's like his eyes were totally closed. And it was like, he was in a buzz. Like he was in a buzzy fantasy in his own mind rather than taking Amanda in. 100%. And so I have often wondered if there is an injury there, because again, it is sort of interesting. It's like, we know Kyle cheats or cheated. My gut feeling is I don't know how much he's cheated during the marriage. I think he really got caught before the marriage. I think he's been very careful. That's just been my sense. I'm not saying there hasn't been any inappropriateness with like flirting or maybe even making out. I just don't get the sense he's been out there fucking around. Maybe I'm naive about that. We would
have heard about it.
That's the other thing. I just feel like we would have heard about it. But anyways,
it's also vague.
It is vague.
Their whole thing.
But it is so interesting that Kyle is this deeply loving, loyal guy who cares so deeply, and then he would just cheat. You know what I mean? And so it's like when I feel into it on a deeper level, I have often wondered, like, is there sort of some wound there around sexual intimacy, around, or even intimacy, because sexual intimacy is like the deepest form of intimacy, but like something around what it truly means to connect on a really deep level, and especially to connect with a woman or the woman.
This is tying in what the relationship to sex and money. I really believe it. I really believe for him, which you brought in earlier, is that, like, I don't think somebody like him would have any transgressions unless they were feeling disempowered in other ways. And I think for him, sexually, he's not going to be available to anybody until he feels empowered in the way that he needs to be empowered in his mind of his idea of his identity. And I don't think that's happened yet. I think he feels misunderstood, he keeps whining about his narrative and everybody this, and then he also keeps whining about his business thing that he's underwater, nobody's seeing him. And it's like, this is not somebody who's going to be able to produce intimate sexual chemistry or connection, because he's literally out on the fucking, like, I see him as like a warrior, like fighting to get through because I feel like what he's fighting for is his own, oh wow. Like, I feel like he's literally fighting towards getting the medal to reclaim his authority. And I don't think he feels it.
Well, it's so interesting you're saying that, because it's like, what we've learned this season, I guess, is like, I think the way it's been framed is, or did I read this online? Because I've been so interested about, like, why? Because Loverboy was doing so well, and it's like, why is he in debt? Like, I get vagueness. I don't understand what's going on. But what I've kind of read and heard is sort of like this notion of he just tried to go too fast too soon.
Yes.
And it's interesting.
Slow
so it's
down.
like, and by the way, it's like putting off family until I'm doing this for, it kind of speaks to your sense of like, I don't feel safe yet. I don't feel secure yet. But yeah, just this kind of reckless sprint towards more money, which again, that's the chaos. It's the bull in the china shop. It's the guy who freaks out at the dinner table. Because I'm always, my question for Kyle, and then, to your point, making these huge decisions without consulting anyone, not consulting Amanda. Okay, I'm going to take out this $4 million loan without consulting you. No one knows the pressure I'm under. But it's like, Kyle,
he created.
You put yourself there. And you didn't slow down to talk this through with anyone. You didn't invite in the partner you claim to want to have. Right. And now you're victimizing yourself and feeling misunderstood, claiming you were doing this for everyone else, yet you did it in private without consulting anyone. So yeah, I've always felt there's something around Kyle. There's something about this notion of what it would mean for Kyle to slow the fuck down. Yeah. To consider his decisions, to bring other people into his decisions, to collaborate, and not be the guy who's trying to run the show behind the scenes. And to your point, create the safety and the security from there. And then once we've arrived at some place that never arrives, which is like, okay, now Loverboy is the $1 billion enterprise and I can relax. And it's like the way that I'm feeling it is like, I got to do this on my own. And I got to sprint there. But once I'm there, then I'm safe. Then I'm safe to let my guard down. Then I'm safe to let you in. And then I'm safe to buy our house in New Jersey where we can relax poolside together. But I'm not giving you the opportunity to, like, I don't know what the thing, like, to do something, go and steal my piggy bank, you know what I mean, behind my back before I've gotten there.
Okay, it's crazy. As you were saying all this, like Kyle sprinting to get the money and Amanda avoiding her creative power. Okay. Kyle moving so fast because he can't slow down. He can't slow down enough to even go to bed. Can't slow down, can't get out of bed. Amanda can't get out of bed. He can't go to bed. She can't get, I mean, they are the same person. They're just going in like two different timelines, like literally in parallel motion and opposite polarities. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking, to your point, like in the way that they marry each other, the way that both of them want a partner without showing up for being a partner. So like,
100%.
Kyle wants a partner, but he's off DJing. He leaves her out of huge decisions. She wants a partner, but to Kyle's point, and by the way, I was one of the only people who took this seriously. It's like, guess what? Like, she is fucking, I'm sorry, like getting high every single night and being checked out of the relationship, being a hoarder.
She's been annoyed by him for years. She's been making fun of him. And I would say, I will use the word humiliation with like all of the other, and believe me, like, look, I really trust Mia. I really like her.
Yeah, I like Mia.
And she felt that this dinner, and I agree with her, and I don't think his behavior is okay at all. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I do. I just think there's so many covert manipulative things that are happening underneath that it's layered. But like Mia felt very much like this is an inappropriate, not that that's the wrong word, but she was concerned for Amanda. And I think like, had we been there and had we seen this relational stuff, like everybody's going to be concerned for Amanda if they see the reaction. That is, I do believe what she wants. Okay. Because she can't get out of it on her own volition. So she needs him to like be worse and worse and worse. So like, I mean, a lot of people cheat because they can't get out of a relationship. It's interesting how like the timeline went down, but like he is saying also outside, he's saying, I'm a mess, I'm drowning. Like he is actually, his outbursts are a cry for help. And so I actually, just before we talk about it, I feel very strongly because I do trust Mia and I do trust Sierra too, because Sierra's reaction to Kyle is very different than Paige and Hannah's. Sierra's reaction to Kyle is out of Sierra's loyalty to Amanda. And Amanda really manipulates the situation by crying about it to everybody, but then like completely dissociating. And then they're all like, oh, it's so weird how she can dissociate. It's like she literally dissociates the entire relationship. I've seen her be extremely cruel to him, shown him zero. Like there is not love flowing towards Kyle from Amanda, in my opinion, for like the last 5 years. So it is very interesting that we're seeing his emotional outbursts are so overt and obvious, similar to like what you're saying happens when you're in these rooms, that of course he's going to be painted as the problem. And that is a problem, right? Because solar energy is powerful and beautiful and bright. And it's also on fire, right? It's also it could burn everything down. And that's what I think he doesn't know how to work with his own Kundalini energy. Like he doesn't know how to work with the creative force within him. And Amanda has lost the creative force within her. And she was hoping that he would ignite it. But instead, he turned in another direction and she went inward.
Well, maybe she was or she also could hide behind like the part of her that doesn't want to take the creative risks. She can hide behind him and then complain about it and make it his fault.
Yes.
And I also want to say another thing that I think both Kyle and Lindsay have in common is, it's like they do have that like healing heat, right? But they're also both, I think both of them. And this is why I always like Lindsay. Because I always like Lindsay. But, the reason I always like Lindsay, well, aside from the fact that I just thought she was funny and dynamic and I loved that she like lived out loud and she was emotional. I also felt this deep tenderness and vulnerability in her. And I think for both Kyle and Lindsay, the inner work, the life task work, it's actually integrating the deep sensitivity with the fire and the heat, because then they're unstoppable. Like they run that fucking heat through their hearts and their sensitivity and their empathy and their desire to connect with others. Those are the fucking leaders of the world. You know what I mean? It's like, and we need that. And I do think this is a perfect segue into getting into some of these past instances. Great. So I want to do that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where you're going with this.
Yeah, well, let's go back to the beginning of the season where Amanda jumped into the pool in her bra. Kyle thought that she was topless, and then he got really pissed. And it's so interesting because this is sort of like where the energetic, unconscious gaslighting sort of comes into play. It's like, Amanda makes the point. I've skinny dipped before, like we skinny dip every summer. I've skinny dipped before. I skinny dipped in Italy. And even Kyle says in his interview, he's like, look, I know like skinny dipping has happened before. I know I don't have a leg to stand on. Right. But then he says something, I think that's at the crux of this. He's like something to the effect of, I don't know. It just feels weird. And what I was and I took this in at the time, because again, everyone was focused on Kyle's reaction. And I talked about this on the Amanda episode, but I remember feeling like, no, like what's going on here? This isn't about the skinny dipping. Like to all of their points, the skinny dipping isn't the issue. It's the fact that, as we're discussing, there was a statement in the skinny dipping. Amanda, I believe, was doing this as a very pointed fuck you. It was intentional. It was, I am going to have fun, and I'm going to have fun with other guys, and I'm going to do it without you. Much in the same way that she came into the house making fun of him, insulting him, laughing at him. It felt very pointed. And I do believe because Kyle is so sensitive, he is picking up on that. I also think he's drunk. And so essentially what Kyle is saying is like, there's something going on here. Yep. And I can't articulate what it is. And I don't know how to slow down long enough to parse this out or to name it or to say it calmly. So instead, I'm just going to react. And then so he's having a reaction. And by the way, there's Jesse on the sidelines making an innocent joke where he's like, Kyle, you can get naked too. And he's got like this big grin on his face. And Kyle predictably doesn't like that. And he says, Jesse, you're the worst mediator like ever. But, I just say that because even that, I'm just like, oh, like, what was that, Jesse? Like, you sense something's going on and you know who Kyle is and how he gets. So like, that's your moment to throw in a little barb. You know what I mean? And then all the attention becomes about Kyle's, because he goes and he storms off and he slams the door, right? And then it's like Kyle is the issue. And then what's so interesting is that, like, if we just sort of want to take this through, he makes a scene, right? And they sort of work that out. But the next weekend, he stands up. And then he starts to apologize to the group for his behavior last summer. Now, to our point, do I understand that there's kind of an obtuseness to Kyle here? Like, again, I get it. There's something that is a little tone deaf about his apologies. We've covered this. He kind of apologizes in a way that skirts over the full impact of his behavior. Because again, even though he's sensing something, and even though his reaction is connected to wisdom, he does react in a way that's very dramatic and severe. But, Amanda just immediately starts, she's got this shit-eating grin that she gives over to Sierra. Sierra clocks it. And Sierra under her breath starts saying, is this a fucking apology to you right now? And like, they're laughing. They're like literally giggling and laughing under their breath. And Kyle stops. I've actually got notes because I really wanted to clock what they did here. Because to me, this is just the essence of the pattern. And Sierra also continues. So she says, is this a fucking toast about you? Don't fucking play us. She's muttering this under her breath. Kyle just looks at her because she's muttering under her breath. And Sierra immediately goes, kind of stops and goes, and she smiles and she's like, what? As if she doesn't know what he's talking about, as if he's not calling something out that's happening. And Kyle then says, is it okay for me to address the table? Basically clocking that they're making fun of him. And Sierra immediately goes, oh my God, Kyle, don't start. Which he's not starting. You actually are the one who started. You are the one who is mocking him under your breath at the table. Kyle says, you love talking over me, which is true. That is the truth. And Sierra plays dumb. She's like, oh, I love talking over you. Again, acting as if she wasn't doing that the whole time. And then Amanda's smirking the whole time. And so then it's really tense at the table, but Kyle continues with his apology and Wes then starts kind of rolling his eyes. Everyone's tense, but they're making it about Kyle being the issue rather than the behavior that initiated. So there's a pattern here, I guess, of Kyle is clocking something. And to even get deeper with the pattern, Amanda and I guess Sierra too, they have something they want to say.
Yeah.
And they're not fucking saying it. And so instead they're being passive aggressive, and they're being passive aggressive in this with the flavor that,
or they're not being heard.
Right. So that's the whole pattern, right? Historically they're not being heard. So they're pissed. So now they're showing up at this dinner with this rage. It's coming through this passive aggressive, bratty mockery. Kyle is sensitively and wisely clocking the mockery. He's saying, yo, what's up? Now they're playing dumb. And this is where the gaslighting comes in of oh, Kyle, don't do that. Kyle starts to have a reaction. And then Amanda, sort of gives him a death stare, is basically the apology doesn't need to be given to the whole table. Basically, Kyle then gets up, I think, and storms into the house. And again, the conversation becomes about his reaction, what he's done wrong. The whole house does then start organizing around, Kyle, the way that you lost your temper, and you need to go apologize. And I think there is a part of Kyle that's wait, but there's more to this story. This whole story isn't just Kyle lost his shit. There's a reason why I lost my shit, but then everyone's telling him apologize, which at a certain level he should. So he then sort of goes in and again gives the little boy, oh, I'm so sorry. And I've just been so sad. So the whole cycle sort of plays itself. But I guess what I'm trying to speak to here, and we can go even more deeply into this with the Paige and Hannah of it all. It's this notion that Kyle, he is sensing something amiss. He's feeling something. He's clocking something. And because of his history and his historical pattern and his unconscious belief system and fears, he doesn't have it in him to slow down, stop himself and say something doesn't feel right. Let me check in with my inner wisdom and let me bring this to you in a collaborative, way where we're going to hear each other and work something out. And instead he steamrolls, and then his steamrolling becomes the issue. And then there's something with the house where they like to poke the steamroller.
It's an easy target, but I think you brought up a really good point when you said that Amanda also was doing her covert fuck you. So it sort of sets up the scene perfectly, right? Like he says outwardly fuck you, but she does fuck you. Like she does her fuck you covert and more socially acceptable, because there's an unpopular opinion for us. And I'm actually with you on this. Like it's unpopular opinion for us to look at the girls in that dinner. The popular opinion is like, the girls are right. Kyle's a mess. He's being performative and apologizing. But the problem is that neither one of these people, Amanda or Kyle, feels safe talking about their issues together. They always bring it to the group. Like this whole season is incestuous people revolving around their relationship. Are we not still talking about essentially their relationship and what went wrong? And now it's turned into another incestuous part of a relationship within this house. That's why it's like a family dynamic. But you brought up another point with when she went in the pool with the naked or whatever, which, like you said, it wouldn't normally be a big deal. And it hasn't been a big deal to him in the past. It's a big deal now. And I'm going to go to Italy and the whole Ben of it all, which is something that I think it's weird because Ben's very loyal to Kyle, actually. Yeah. And Ben seems to be very like attuned to Kyle. But I also found Amanda's behavior around Ben to be fascinating and also like very telling. And I think everybody saw it when she literally was flirting with him. And then the weird thing she said to Ben's girlfriend, which was completely like, she is like, it's almost like her personality starting to unravel. You know, it's almost like the tricks aren't working and now she's sort of showing her cards and now we see who she is. Right. And I actually feel nothing but sadness in that regard, because this is a girl who doesn't know who she is and she's never claimed who she is. And I think Hal also has a lot of intuition and it's sad to watch where it's headed. Sure. But, she says this really fucked up thing to the girlfriend, in my opinion. It was so weird. To Ben's girlfriend when they first meet, like, oh, well, da-da-da. And then later in the testimonials was very defensive and be like, he did want to fuck me. He did want to fuck me. Like it was very important that the audience knew that she is desired by Ben. But then also we're supposed to feel bad for Amanda when Kyle doesn't want her swimming naked with Ben. These are the things that keep happening. These sort of hypocrisies happen all the time. Sierra has her own issues with the men in the house. And yeah, it's all going to get projected onto Kyle. And it's all going to get projected onto Kyle because Sierra is deathly loyal friend. Like when you see scenes when Kyle comes in the room and we see Amanda in the middle and we've got Mia and Sierra, who are two strong, loyal people, basically like huddling around this sort of, in my opinion, very manipulative, wounded person who can't identify what their actual feelings are. It was hard to watch that for all of us, knowing what happens, but also just, I think it would have been hard to watch regardless. And I do think there's learned behavior that I know you're going to bring up Giggly Squad next. So I'll just sort of end with this, that like all of these girls also talk in like a glottal fry. Not Sierra. Sierra speaks and finish sentences, thank God. But these girls like Hannah and Paige and like all of them talk and it goes back to this, like, that's how they talk. It's fine. People find it funny. It is funny. I think it's great. I'm not telling them to talk different. I am a vocal coach. So it does bother me a little bit sometimes because it feels like they don't feel that they found their voice because they're not feeling heard by people like Kyle. And so I do think when you have a lightning rod like Kyle as a mate, as a sort of patriarch of the house, which I very much believe that he is, yes, if he's not listening to you, eventually the group as a whole is going to project everything onto him. And so that's why he can't win. And I don't think he can win, actually. When it comes to like having conversations with the groups, I don't think he's ever going to get through to them because they're not buying it, because they're seeing different behaviors and they're seeing like the fact that like he can say it performatively on a, like to the camera or in a group, but like he has a hard time when it was like that one-on-one with him and Carl. So I can see everybody's point of view from that. But the way that the girls handle it here in this passive aggressive tone is because they haven't Unfortunately, Sierra's doing it for other reasons. She's just being loyal to Amanda, and she has her own issues with men, I think. And unfortunately, she's choosing to make an allegiance here. But I really, truly believe that Sierra, and I just have to say this, even with the beach thing when she overstepped, all of this stuff, I really do believe it's coming from a good place. I do think when it comes to her friendships, she is as sincere as they come.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, and Kyle, you know, it is interesting because hearing you talk, yeah, it's like Kyle, I said this on Instagram in relationship to like Amanda and him coming and going and wanting to connect when it's convenient for him to connect. But it's like, yeah, right. Kyle wants what he wants when he wants it. And so I think, you know, again, we're sort of saying this in different ways throughout the episode, but I'm sure even on an unconscious level, it's something the house clocks where it's like Kyle's the leader when it works for him, and he's the benevolent, loving father when it works for him, but then he's the baby when it works for him, you know? And so it's sort of like, yeah, I can kind of understand the frustration. So let's go into Giggly Squad, which I think can kind of like then bleed into the possible historical pattern I feel in this. This is the season premiere of season 4, where the name Giggly Squad came into being. And like I said, to me, this is just like the most archetypal example of this. And like I said, I kind of have possible hits about just like historical reverberation for Kyle. But basically, you know, Amanda is talking about planning the wedding, and I guess their original wedding venue fell through. And, you know, obviously, I guess Paige and Hannah have feelings at this point about Amanda and Kyle's relationship, about their marriage, you know, feelings that they're not, I guess, directly expressing. And they're like literally giggling under their breath as Amanda is talking about the wedding venue falling through. And then Kyle, you know, starts to offer his point of view about what happened. And Paige mutters under her breath, literally making fun of Kyle, like, see what happened was, meaning like he's being the big bad man who's like interjecting, I guess, and mansplaining things, even though he really wasn't doing that. And so again, Kyle calls it out. He's like, all right, guys, as much as I love your banter, which by the way, like, didn't start out yelling, like was saying this pretty respectfully. And first of all, Amanda immediately, before he even finishes the sentence, she's like, Kyle, stop.
Yeah, she does that a lot.
What? Like, he's just speaking up for himself. And Paige then immediately denies it. She's like, oh, Kyle, we're laughing with each other at dinner. And then she says, don't get crazy about it. So literally using the word crazy, again, this is literal gaslighting. We are laughing at you. You respond, which again, initially respectfully, we are immediately saying you're getting crazy about it. We're not doing that. We're just having an innocent laugh at dinner. Kyle then, you know, counters, we're talking about our wedding and you guys are laughing about it. Hannah, by the way, is still giggling as he's talking, which again, you know, someone's upset, right? Like, usually the respectful thing to do when someone's upset.
I would never. Yeah,
you don't laugh.
I wouldn't get away with it. I wouldn't get away with that.
Paige then lies, literally lies, and says, you're talking about your wedding and I'm laughing at Hannah, which is not true. And Hannah keeps laughing. And Kyle literally calls it out. He says, please be respectful. You're giggling the entire time. Hannah continues to laugh while he's saying this. And then again, Paige is just like, we're laughing. We're having fun. And this is where Kyle starts to get angry. And he's like, have you ever been at a table where people are literally laughing at you? And that's when Paige immediately makes this temper the issue. She's like, you're literally yelling at us for laughing, which is not what's going on at all. So again, there's something going on at the dinner table. There's something going on in the group situation. There's an energy that's not being named. There's a poking, gleeful, mean energy. Kyle is sensing it. Kyle is calling it out. And Kyle is being told, you're crazy. And that's what enrages him, which even just saying that, I think in terms of like, if we're going to explore possible historical pattern here, it's sort of interesting that what starts getting him really upset is sort of like when people are calling him either silently or overtly, they're telling him he's crazy, and that what he's picking up on isn't actually true, and that there is no actual issue. He's the issue. Oh, even just saying that, like I felt a shot to my heart. Like that feels like the trigger for Kyle. It's like the voice I hear is, there's something going on here. Don't fucking tell me I'm crazy. And this is actually when he bangs, there's a lot of talk about this, Kyle banging his fist on the table. This is when he bangs his fist on the table. And Paige then says, just because we laughed, Paige literally says, I am sorry for giggling to my friend at a comment, and then has the gall to say, I feel like there is something deeper going on. Why are you banging your fist against the table just because I laughed at my friend about a comment? And again, it's just like the gaslighting. It's like, yeah, there actually is something deeper going on, but she's trying to make implications about their relationship. The deeper thing that's going on in this moment is actually your strong opinions and rage that you're not bringing directly, that Kyle is responding to. And again, you're making him the issue and then calling him psychotic. Her thing.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then Hannah literally says to him, if you get this mad over a giggle, I can't imagine dating you.
Ooh.
And I'm just like, again, it's just like a total
inciting behavior.
Yeah. And then Kyle says, fuck you, Hannah. Like he said, fuck you to Amanda. And again, the issue becomes that Kyle said, it's like, oh, look at how you're reacting. Clearly there is an issue. And this proves our point about what a toxic man and boyfriend you are. But it's actually like, no, you guys actually instigated something here, which again, doesn't excuse Kyle's.
He is,
Well, right, exactly. It doesn't excuse Kyle's emotional dysregulation, but I feel for him because, yeah, as we're talking about, I do feel like there's a way that he's being set up here. And I feel like there's a way that even when he's trying to bring a deeper truth out, there's a way they twist it to poke him to get a reaction to quote unquote prove their point. And it doesn't make his behavior okay. But I will say this. This is what I'll say. And I think this is why I tend to feel more sympathetic to Kyle. And by the way, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's my personal perspective. Because people are going to respond. I understand Paige and Hannah represent something to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I get that. I respect that. But for me, the reason why I personally have more of a soft spot towards Kyle in these situations is I don't think he has an intention to be mean or to hurt people or in to any way harm others, even though his behavior can be harmful. Whereas in these situations, I do feel an unconscious intention from the others to humiliate him, to embarrass him. Like there's the glee. In these situations, I don't feel like glee from Kyle. And I think that's where there's a difference for me.
There's this book called How to Deal with a Passive Aggressive Man. And in this scenario, the roles are reversed. So historically, or in a lot of cases, men aren't able to express themselves and women are called irrational for having big emotions. And then men are sort of containing it and passive aggressive, and it can be really damaging. And in this case, we have Kyle, the man of the house, if you will, if we're saying that that's true, who's acting irrationally, big emotion to some women who Hannah will set aside, but to Amanda and Paige, right? Who notoriously work under the shadows, right? Like they do their work, they do their aggression under the table, if you will. And so this passive aggressive sort of, I'm literally laughing at you. You mean nothing to me. Like I could make fun of you and laugh at you and make you feel like nothing and then call you crazy when that hurts your feelings and makes you go fucking insane. Now, this usually happens with women. This is like the roles are being flipped, man. Like a lot of times, like this is usually like, the women is like, wow, you're making me crazy because you're saying crazy stuff. And then they're like, wow, you're acting crazy. So it is interesting to see. And I've always felt this way about Summer House. These girls sort of represent these like masculine traits and the men sort of, they sort of are blending all the time and the roles are getting constantly like switched up. But one other quick thing I want to say when you were talking about how Amanda was like, Kyle, like before he had even said anything, when he was calm, she was like, don't. This happened in this latest episode. And I would say in most episodes, she shuts him down anytime he's getting to a point or anytime he's going to be direct. Sometimes she's shutting him down because he's out of control. But this last episode where she put her hand over his mouth and escalated and wouldn't just let him walk away and be angry was infuriating to me.
And it just shows that their pattern, this is a toxic relationship where one person's overt and the other person's moving in the shadows. And it drives me nuts. And it's such a common toxic pairing. But this idea of like suppressing him, putting her hands on him, telling him to like he was acting crazy towards Carl, but her suppression of him in that moment and her wanting to control it, like it really is like this deep desire within her is to like control him and morph him and like tame him. And this desire within him is like literally going to fight against all of that. And it's just interesting because I feel like with the Paige and Amanda, like Amanda would not have that point of view. She trained herself to sound and talk and be like the other girls. We saw it happen. We saw her morph into the like trifecta that then became, really, it ended up being Paige, Amanda, and Sierra. But that was like a morph. Amanda never really felt to me like she was settled in those relationships. It was more performative for me. Mm-hmm. I really think the passive aggressive versus the irrational thing and putting the hands over and trying to contain and all of these different ways where it's like you're trying to trick the narrative. And that's what goes back to like his big frustration. Like they're all trying to fucking like spin the narrative. And like tell, which is, I guess, what people do for survival is they're trying to tell their point of view so that they don't look like the bad guy. But like everybody's behavior is equally toxic, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's like we're saying, it's, and this is always the case in relationships, right? It's why we're drawn to who we're drawn to. You know, they're shadows of each other. It's like Kyle, as I was saying before, like it just feels like there's life task work around slowing down, integrating sensitivity. Like he could stand to what's sort of like an evolved version of what Amanda does. Like he could stand to chew on things a little bit. He could stand to, like pause and wait and let's say be more intentional with his feelings and how he feels and sort of bringing it to people. Whereas Amanda obviously could stand to learn how to stand 10 toes down in her feelings, be direct, be clear, bring things in a really sort of direct, because, you were talking about like her interviews around that moment with Ben and what she said to Sabrina. What was striking to me, to your point, was the difference and what she had to say and how she had to say it in that interview versus how she showed up in the house. Because I was like,
I know.
I've talked about this before on the podcast. I feel a diva in Amanda. And I was like, there's the fucking diva. She had a fucking point of view, which by the way, God bless, like bring that to the house. But how interesting was it that in the privacy of the interview, Amanda had such a strong point of view and such a willingness to say it. When it comes time to bring it to the house, she's apologizing, she's qualifying, she's like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. And so for me, I was like, well, there's the split. There's sort of like the little girl versus, I think, the much stronger woman who's got fucking something to say. So I think she could stand to learn from Kyle in that way.
I guess I'm now just sort of feeling like going back to the first thing you said, like he has an earnest heart. And my immediate reaction, and I think in my own life, when I see something's happening and it's not being named, I typically will name it. And I will typically be villainized because I'm not very good at naming it. I assume it's obvious to everybody. And so I'll name it. And then people are like, why would you say that? And I'm like, oh shit, what happened? So, and I'm always coming from a place of like, don't you want to see the truth? Won't the truth set you free? Whereas I've learned, and I'm still very novice at this and very sort of almost, I would say, naive, that I'm learning now, oh no, people are strategizing. Like people don't all seek like the truth will set us free. And I think when you have somebody like Kyle, it's like what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. Hannah and Paige, they're playing the long game. Like, and it's working for them, by the way. They're just doing television. Like they're playing the long game and it's a strategy. And Paige was very, very smart and cunning to create almost like a character right out of the gate, where I do think her actually, I'm going to be really fair to Paige because I think she is a beautiful example of like when you're that authenticated that early on and you roll with it and you just be who you are. And then you notice how being who you are is working for you and you push the gas on that even more. It's pretty extraordinary how powerful she is and amazing she is, right? But you mentioned what she was doing with
with like I think there's something deeper there, but then like not speaking to it, but then making it wrong. It's like, well, I mean, that's kind of how it was with Craig, right? Like, oh, Craig, what's your problem? By the way, I'm never going to marry you or have your kids. Like so we're talking about something that's kind of interesting. Okay. We're talking about the unspoken versus the overspoken and how those two things mash up against each other. And it's very much like, why are we all watching these shows right now? Well, because the world's crazy. And so why don't we but it's also, this show is a mirror of that, right? Like we're seeing like all of the underbelly, I said passive aggressive before, but it's really like the unspoken truth of like, Kyle, we think you're an idiot and we're just going to like say it in a way where we don't get in trouble. In fact, we will get idolized for it. I'm going to make fun of you, Kyle, to the point of becoming an idol for all the girls who didn't get their voice heard. And look, we're dealing with like an era of time where like, all these years where women's voices, aren't heard. And I will say as a woman, I walk into some rooms, sometimes even like creative rooms where I'm like, they're just not going to hear me. Like no matter what comes out of my mouth, they're just not going to hear me. And so I understand so deeply why they're acting passive aggressively. But the problem is that sort of inauthenticity, like poking and gaslighting somebody else and watching them blow to satisfy some desire within you that's unhealed, that's going to backfire, right? And that creates the ecosystem. Right. And that's what goes back to your original point of like, this is all learned behavior.
Yeah, it doesn't solve anything. Like, because like to your point, obviously, like patriarchal oppression is real. Right. And so, yes, empathy, of course, for the righteous rage and the grief and the devastation, the price that's been paid, but also understanding getting back like this, it doesn't actually serve to change the structure that created the damage in the first place. And if anything, like you're saying, it reinforces it because now Kyle's just going to be, you know what I mean? It's like the injured people are injuring others and then they're going to injure, and so it's like, and, we've spoken to this before. I get it. Like it sucks being the subjugated person who then has to hold space for those who can't see. I mean, in whatever system, even in a family system, if you're the one who sees and you kind of have to be the bigger person who's holding space for the family members who don't see, like, believe me, I get it. Like it fucking sucks. But also it's like, be the change you want to see. That's sort of the life task work for some of us to be willing to sit in the heartbreak, in the aloneness of being the one who sees and has to model something different for the sake of deeper healing in the collective. That's a bit of a digression, but
that's an important thing though. Like getting to the point where you're not thinking before you speak. It's like has been considered a version of clairvoyance where you're not worried about how it's perceived. If you see the truth and you say it clearly and you just speak it from the heart, you're not from the heart, like without motive, without like, from like real seeking understanding. And I think like for me, maybe the delivery and learning how to do that correctly is like sort of the finesse, but I actually think it's a beautiful thing to talk about. And I think that it can be a lonely journey, but it just is what it is. It's just what you're called to do. And for me, getting to a place where I'm not so worried about how I'm perceived is the ultimate liberation.
Well, I don't want to digress too much, but yeah, I would say, I think, at least speaking from my own experience and witnessing what I've, seen with clients, I think the key thing is in some ways not needing other people to validate it, not being wedded to the outcome of whether you are seen or heard, being so aligned with your sense of inner truth. It's like, hey, this is what it is. I'm not attached to outcome. Because I will say I've walked that journey of being someone who was a provocateur for, like, I would get, projected upon and punished and vilified for bringing my truth to the table. I want to say I've walked a journey where now I'm literally, it's how I earn my living. Like I am valued. I am happy to say, like, and I'm proud of this. Like I am valued for what I see. I am valued for my sense of clarity and truth, but it's because this is everything starts with our relationship to ourselves. I had to let go of the victim story of, they're not seeing and hearing me and no one like understand, and it's like, it's just
Kyle.
Exactly, which we're going to now get into, but it's like when I finally got aligned with my sense of deeper truth for myself. And it's like, this is what it is. I'm offering it, take it or leave it. That really is sort of like when everything shifted. And it is a process, especially.
I think what
what you just said is going to resonate with more people than you realize.
Oh no, I realize.
Okay.
No, but I appreciate.
It's just so beautiful. I mean, I'm on my own journey there. I'm really starting to get to the other side of it.
No, I mean, and the reason I'm saying that, I'm not saying I realize it to my own horn. I'm saying there's a reason why I'm saying this, which is I know people struggle with this. You know, I struggled with it so deeply. So I know what it is to walk that path, you know? So what I'm saying is, I want to like really own how important the message is and how much I care about it. And I think also to say, like, if this is resonating with people, like to take that seriously for yourselves and like, don't minimize it. Cause you just said it. The key to the kingdom is when, like, look, I always say this, it's lovely and nice to be seen and heard. It's lovely. I love being seen and heard. And that is my reality more often than not these days. But like when you don't need it.
When you don't need it. Yep.
That's the liberation, you know,
100%.
when you don't.
That's creative flow too.
And sometimes, this is the last thing I'll say about it. Like sometimes, part of the process is risking that truth, not being seen and heard, and feeling the pain. You know, I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about, like in the Sierra episode of like feeling the pain, but also not using that to wipe yourself out. So there's a difference between like, ouch, this hurts. Ugh, it's kind of heartbreaking. I'm grieving, you know, whatever the loss of this relationship, but also I'm still connected to my good intentions. I'm not sitting here making myself wrong. I'm not sitting here saying life is punishing me. It is what it is. Like there's something that I brought. This person couldn't meet me there. It's the bittersweet experience of life. I mourn this relationship and now I've moved through that and I'm moving on. And because I didn't collapse on this or shut this down or make them wrong in terms of like, they're just in their limitations. I didn't make me wrong. I didn't make life wrong. Now I'm going to call in people who are ready for this. So it's not that it's all, I mean, to me, this is part of letting go of the outcome. It's not that it's always celebrated. It's just, you know, it's not the determining factor how it's received. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it ties into this whole conversation. You know, this is that Kundalini energy, that not knowing how to navigate, feeling like you see it, but it's hard to, I will say that within this house and within my own experience of what you were just talking about, it's weird when your heart shows you something, because I mostly see through like heart and like I see things through that lens. And you're like, oh, I see it so clearly. But society is literally structured completely differently. So then you feel like you're almost like life and society is almost gaslighting your experience. Right. And I feel like that's kind of how Kyle feels a lot of time within this house, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and not, I'll stop talking about myself after this, but it's like, you know, you're reminding me, I used to feel so hurt if I would offer something, even if like someone didn't have a bad reaction, but they just couldn't take it in because this is kind of what I was saying about Kyle. It's like, it actually is an expression of my love. Like when I offer this to someone, it is an expression of my love. And so if it's not received, I used to feel so hurt and I would take it so personally and I'd sort of feel dumb and stupid, you know, like all the things. Whereas now, it's like the attitude has shifted to like, this is an expression of my love. I do think it's a gift. And also not everyone's going to get it and not everyone's going to be able to receive it. And that's fine. And now when I can sense that someone's not receiving it, I just save my energy. It's like, oh, okay, let me recalibrate. You know what I mean? And like, I'm just going to shift the conversation. You know, it's just like, it is what it is. There's no story around it. It's just, they are where they are. I am where I am. It's not the medicine for them. Peace and love.
You realize it's not about you. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by separating the story you tell yourself from, you know, what's actually happening in front of you, you know.
That's what my reading uncovered about Kyle in this house was the narrative versus how one feels about themselves. And when you feel like you're being pinned into a character that you don't want to be, like we've all had that experience in a group where everybody's created a role for you that you don't even feel is who you are.
Right. And it's a perfect segue because this is where history comes in. It's like, what is this pinging in history? And so Kyle's really interesting. You know, as I've mentioned, I've always wanted to do like kind of an episode around Kyle's relationship to like workaholism and like blurring the boundaries of work, family life, friends and family life. So I've dropped into Kyle before where I was like, okay, if I drop into Kyle, where Amanda's not part of Loverboy. And I have like a separate office I go to that's like blocks away. And in the morning I get up and I go to the office, and that's where I do Loverboy shit, and I do it on my own. And then Amanda's allowed to have her life, pursue her dreams. Then I come home, work's done, and it's all very energetically boundaried. Because to me, this is Kyle's version of Amanda's hoarding. It's all the blurred lines, right? I mean, even like Summer House, it's like blurring play and partying and work. Everything's blurred. And if I'm Kyle and then I come home to Amanda and she's there, the image I always get is Amanda's sitting on a couch reading a book. And as Kyle, I experience her as almost like ignoring me. Even though I want to be clear, as Jamie, she's not actually ignoring him. Like, she's just reading a book. As Kyle, the way I experience like energetic boundaries and Amanda doing her own thing, it's like I'm being ignored. And then the voice I always hear, which he says this a lot actually, is like, don't you see how hard I'm trying? Don't you see the work I'm doing for us? It's almost like he feels so unseen and unheard for how hard he's trying. And this is where I always stop and get blocked, because it's this feeling of Kyle, and I start to feel young here. Like this is. Well,
I was going to say Arrested Development.
Yeah, it's like as Kyle, it starts to feel like I picture him in like this kitchen in a childhood home, and he's like distinctly alone, like no one's seeing or hearing him, but he's trying hard, working hard. It's this notion of like this kid who's like seeing something, like he's seeing things, he's feeling things in the family home. And I guess I'll just bring in like, I've always been drawn to his mother because I don't remember the specifics. I should have gone back. I do remember there was talk of like his mother's relationship to infidelity. I think she cheated on his father. I can't remember if it was before they were married or during the marriage, but she cheated. And I also remember a moment early on when Kyle made this very kind of passing comment about his mother, kind of like she'll sort of do and say whatever the fuck she wants to do or say. He was kind of like, my mom. Like there is this feeling of her sort of being out of control in some way.
They both are. Both of his parents are wild. That's great. Yeah.
But clearly there's so much love in this family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much heart, and this feeling of like Kyle as this boy adolescent who's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like there's, again, coming back to present day circumstances as a window into past pattern, something is fucking going on here. Like what is going on? And piecing together all this stuff, I know I'm sort of working my way through this collage patchwork style. It's almost like, because what I come back to is, and we're not going to answer this today, but the question for me always is, what did Kyle learn about slowing down? What did he learn about trying to communicate with people and taking people in and being taken in? Like, why does that feel so dangerous to him? Why does he flood? Why does he dysregulate? Why does he overload as a defense? And yeah, I just feel something. It's like, if there was something going on in this family system that's not being named, and he's this deeply sensitive kid who's like feeling something and trying to get something out, but then the family doesn't want to hear it. And then I think about this experience of like meanness, and almost like, was there a way the family system kind of like, in order to avoid whatever was going on around mom, somehow making Kyle the problem, even if it wasn't kind of like in the house, it wasn't like overt. It wasn't like, Kyle, fuck you. But it was like maybe a subtle, oh, there goes Kyle, making fun of Kyle, poking fun at Kyle. Yeah. Kyle, you're the clown. And then maybe he does have outbursts, and it's like, Kyle. But like, I don't even get the sense his family would have like reacted strongly like the house does, but sort of like that becomes part of the laughing stock. It's like, and almost like maybe we like to provoke Kyle and get him to explode because it, in a way, it minimizes his point of view. It creates a culture where we don't have to take him seriously. And then the threat of whatever he's trying to bring through is minimized. And then, just to kind of like overtly state what I think I was alluding to before, because you are bringing in this notion of like the wounded feminine, both I think outside of Kyle, but also within Kyle and his relationship to the feminine. And yeah, just this notion that there seems to be some sort of hot spot in the family. And the fact that his mother was committing infidelity, which, you know, like there's the connection on an overt level between like women, sex, intimacy, betrayal. And then again, if there is going back to sort of what I felt this primary trigger was of like him banging the table of like, Kyle, your perception of things is wrong. Like, no, there isn't actually a problem. You're the problem. And I don't know, I can almost feel the possibility of like, if dad is conspiring with mom to smooth things over about what mom is doing, and then they're both kind of colluding to poke at Kyle and be like, they're there, you're the issue, we're kind of quote unquote lovingly making fun of you and poking you to minimize your wisdom. It's so funny because with Kyle, like I said, I get blocked. And I think I even mentioned this at the top of the episode. Like I always feel him going around in a circle, but that's like around the heart of things. But that's almost suddenly what I could feel is the possible like energetic pattern of the family system. Like we're going to circle around, because like Kyle, like you mentioned Kundalini, I talked about him as this channel for like clearing, cleansing energy where he wants to name things out. That's like a column of energy that comes through the center. It comes up your spine. It comes up the column. Rod. Yeah, exactly. Like rod, column, spine, center. If Kyle has this direct intuitive information to energy that wants to move through his center, and the family kind of wants to avoid that, I could say maybe see a family system where they organize around, let's sort of like maneuver around Kyle's clear intuitive knowing, minimize it, make fun of him, make him the problem, make his temper the butt of the joke. And that there could be sort of an underground cruelty to that, not to intentionally be mean to Kyle, but to sort of, again, to minimize the truth that he's trying to bring out.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then I think of the time when his money was stolen by his friends. Here he is boasting about his savings, and then they all steal it. I mean, that still is striking me, like really affecting me. And so you're taking it from like assuming this is true, which we've already seen that he can play. So I feel very confident in saying that one of his like archetypal journeys that he's sort of waffling and going back and forth is like he's going from the clown to the mark, like being an actual mark. To the emperor, right? So he's playing the role of the emperor, and yet he is still knowing that he's a clown, like this last episode when they all walk in and see him covering himself in the kitchen and everybody laughs and loves him. I mean, there are so many moments of joy in Summer House that do revolve around him just being himself. And just being like an innocent child. Yeah. Like the things that they love about him is he's this innocent child. And as we were talking, I kind of realized, you know what? I actually think I think this is the frustration that Paige had with him and all the girls have with him. And I can kind of understand it now. He is sort of in an arrested development stage. He is very much a boy. Mm-hmm. And he is very much given the power of the emperor. And I think that's why these women resent it, because they wouldn't get that power handed to them as easily. Here he is, this sort of childish, clownish boy, but he really does have a heart of gold, if you ask me. And they're resenting the fact that he's given all this power, and they want to see him blow up to say, see, he shouldn't have the power. And it's not because of it. It's not because they hate him. It's just because I think what happens in this, that's why I think him and Lindsay are so similar. I think what happens is when somebody is stepping into their power and maybe they don't know how to manage it, I think it's like an opportunity. I think everybody seeks power, unfortunately, right? And so I think when somebody's able to step into it, they'll either be celebrated or, I mean, that's how the world is, right? Like you see famous people and they want to be celebrated, and everybody wants to take them down. That seems to be, unfortunately, a desire. Is if somebody's powerful, people want to knock them down a notch. And so Amanda enters and knocks him down and knocks him down and knocks him down. And I do feel like he's knocking her down too, but I feel like where his sort of problem is that, like an arrested development child, he has never learned how to regulate his emotions, because going back to him not slowing down. And because he can't regulate, he has these outbursts that feel very entitled, and that rubs everybody the wrong way. Because let me tell you something, if Mia were to act that way at the table, like she might not be asked back on the show, right? Like these are the double standards that I think a lot of people resent. And I'm just sort of piecing that together after you said all of that. And I could be wrong, and I'm not trying to villainize Kyle. I love him, but I'm just saying.
No, it's not villainizing him at all. And, you know, and I would even add to it, and especially because the thing is, I do think he also does have those moments of embodying the emperor, like I talked about. But I think and I spoke to this earlier, he has his own fickle relationship to it. So it's not even just about envying his power, but it's also like, and again, I actually relate to this as someone who really like disempowered myself and I would trigger people. Like, again, I don't want to go into stories about me, but you know, I lived that where people like they didn't know what was going on, but they were pissed because they knew on some level I had so much more to say and to offer, and I wasn't bringing it. And I think Kyle, that's what I was saying about I sort of want what I want when I want it. He wants to be able to play the clown when it works for him. He wants to be the arrested little boy when it works for him. He wants to be the emperor when it works for him. Maybe
and the mark.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's saying now, like I'm a victim of these loans that I took out. No, you're not. You took out the loans.
Exactly. And I think even going to like the maybe an even deeper level of the wound you're talking about in terms of like the wound around the patriarchy, it's like, this is what I was talking about with Hannah, like being attracted to him, but then hating herself for it. Like this wound that says like, we feel what's in you, like actually be the emperor. And I guess actually I'm combining what you're saying. It's like, be the emperor and don't fucking play around with it because you can, because society allows you to. Like, we need you. Like, we fucking need you. And I don't think it's just the women who are saying that. I think it's the men who are saying it too. It's like,
and he's not
need you. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I did just sort of quickly before the episode started, I did sort of just drop into the house energy towards Kyle just to see what I would see. And what I saw was, I'm just doing it again now. It's like, it is seeing him speaking to Arrested Development as this like obtuse, like little boy who's sort of so lost in his own story. And I can feel just the rage, the frustration. And again, that desire to both to like fuck with him because it feels good, because like I am pissed at you, because there's so much more I want from you, but also to poke you, to say, snap the fuck out of, like, stop playing dumb. Stop playing dumb. Like, you have so much more to give. Don't fucking do this on your own terms.
He is giving mixed messages, not only to his wife with the DJing, but then not, you know what I mean? Like, he does give mixed messages because he's not stepping into this 110%.
And I will say the one thing that came to me while you were talking, and maybe this will be a really good note to end on, you know, because I did bring in this question of like, what would it mean for him to slow down? And maybe this is stating the obvious, but it's like, I felt it. Like, I just felt it so deeply of like, because that is where he could get so hurt. Like that is like where his heart is. And it's sort of like, if Kyle had some experience, of that deep injury, and it's like, if I slow down and I take you in and I give you what I have to give, and then you, even just saying this, it's almost like, what?
You'll take from me, like,
well, it's just, it's
with
just
the money.
I can even feel, as Kyle, as I say that, I don't even want to let myself finish the statement. And I feel like my heart barriers want to close to protect my heart. It's just, it's like the level. And again, this is the crying, I think, with Sierra at the reunion. I just think there is a wound there that is so fucking deep. And it's almost like I'd rather play out this sort of comparatively more superficial pain of flooding and dysregulated and being misunderstood. At least I'm kind of in control here. And I don't have to feel like the fucking heartbreak of like genuinely letting you in. I keep like experiencing it as like someone's going to stab my heart with a knife. Like my heart is literally going to get sliced, and I will not be able to tolerate this.
It's almost like a defense against the money being stolen from his savings from those kids.
You've made me so curious about actually his family's relationship to money. My understanding is that his immediate family seems to be well off, but like even like extended family, familial history, because, you've made me so curious about his relationship to money and the race for money and the equivalency with security. And then, as we mentioned, his friends stealing his money. I think that's so interesting.
There's a defense going on, and that's what he's not aware of in regard to this house, but that's what's always underneath. What he's aware of is making the money. What he's unaware of is this defensive current of territorial energy, not only from him, but from everybody.
Well, and the last thing I'll say, I actually picked a card from the Osho deck about Kyle just before we got on. And the card is the awareness card. And in the card, it's literally like, it's actually interesting. It's like a young boy, Arrested Development. It's a young boy's face kind of piercing through this flaming veil. And the card is all about piercing the illusion.
Boom, right there.
Which, for me, it's like, one, Kyle has the capacity to pierce the illusion with his clear sense of truth, his feeling, his fiery emotions. Again, it's so interesting that there's fire in this card, but then also
he can't pierce his own.
Right, exactly. Like, he kind of like what we talked about, the fantasy, because I feel that way. Like, when I saw him closing his eyes with Amanda, I was like, it's like a spell has been cast over him. And when he's doing the little boy thing of like, I'm so sorry, and it's just so hard being me. It's like I called it blinders earlier, but it does feel like that a spell has been cast. And it's like he's lost inside his own illusion. Oh my God, and the work is for him to pierce that illusion, but then also coming back to the original topic, it's almost like the house, when they're poking at him, part of it is this unconscious desire to like pierce his illusion, but in doing that, to help them pierce their illusion.
Yes, we did it.
All right, Molly, thank you so much for your time and energy and hanging out with me. Tell people where they should find you. And I have a note for people after you share this.
Yeah, you can find me at Molly Durand on Instagram. I'm going to keep it real simple. That's where you can find me.
And I am going to shout out for my listeners that you do in fact give tarot readings. Like, this is something people...
I've studied and done tarot for 12 years now, and I'm obsessed with it.
So Molly offers tarot readings. And I want to say, like, I want to vouch for her. She has given me readings. I call upon her for guidance. They are deep. They're powerful. She's predicted things. So if you are someone who's looking for an individual reading of some kind, if you want to consult the cards, like, don't walk to Molly and hit her up to find out more about it, because she's very gifted at it. And as always, you guys, you can find me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JamiesTein. Now more than ever, there is content there that is exclusive to Instagram. You can get all sorts of quick hits there and whatnot. And if you're interested in my work, you can go to hollywoodreadings.com and send me an email and let me know. And that is it for now. All right, you guys. See you on the flip side. Bye.